Oxfordshire News, Oxfordshire Life,
Graham Mack,
BBC Radio Oxford.
Let's meet a have-a-go hero now, Preston Likely. Good afternoon, how are you?
Great.
All right, well, you've made the front page of today's Oxford Mail.
Yeah.
This is an incident that happened on Saturday. Talk us through what happened, what you saw, and how you ended up saving a life.
Well, I just turned up at the pub on my bicycle.
So which pub is this?
This is the Tree Hotel in Iffley Village.
Right, in Iffley Village. So you've gone just for a drink at the pub?
Yeah, to meet some friends. And just as I was locking my bike up, I saw a crowd of people, and they all seemed transfixed at the roof. And then I looked up, and I saw a child standing up on the roof, the apex. It was sort of straddling the apex, standing up, this toddler. And my first thought was, he's going to fall. Why isn't anybody...
So how high up is this? I mean, this is a pub, so this is a bigger building.
Oh, yeah, it's like two floors up. And so it's pretty high, probably about 25, 30 feet. My thought was, what's everybody doing? Why are they so static? I thought, my God, I better act because nobody else is doing anything. And I just threw off my coat and turned into this Superman.
Could you hear the Superman music in your head?
Yeah, Batman, Likely Man. It was mad, I just didn't really think. I just thought he's going to fall.
Well, how did you get up there?
I managed to scramble up a drain pipe, grab hold of a gutter, which started collapsing in my hand, and somehow managed to pull myself up onto the roof. But then the tiles started falling away under my feet, and I thought, oh no, this is ridiculous. And I could see the child in front of me, and I thought, if he falls now, I'm going to have to leap for him, So it was all just in that moment. I can't quite describe it. It was just focus, get the child, don't think about anything else. It wasn't the thought of I'm going to fall. It was just that I will get that child. So you get. I mean, are you a father yourself? Yeah.
How many kids you got?
Just the one.
And how old's your kid?
4.
Did that go through your mind? Did you see your child, you think?
In about a femtosecond, every thought went through my mind, relating to my child, that child, what their parents would think if it fell. Within a split second, all that would have been going on, and that's what kind of propelled me up there. What happens if it was my daughter, I'd like somebody to rescue her if I wasn't there.
So you grab this little chap, and then you got to get him off the roof.
Well, I couldn't get him off. Once I'd got him, it was very powerful, hence the reason he was up there anyway. And I had to really, really grip him hard, and he kept moving. I said, no, don't move. Please don't move. And I tried getting back down, but I had him in one hand.
You tried getting back down the way you came up? What?
No, the other side of the roof.
Which I'm guessing is because how did he get out onto the roof?
Well, apparently he'd gone up some step ladders that were around the back of the building, and he'd got up the step ladders, and then somehow, and I don't know how...
Oh, there's maybe some work going on or something.
I don't know. Yeah. It defied logic. Yeah. Because the roof was so steep, I could hardly get up it, but I suppose he was lighter.
But you hadn't exactly planned ahead, had you? You'd got up there, now you've got to get down. Yeah, so what did you do?
Well, I tried getting down on the other side, and there was a drop, and I had one hand on the apex of the roof and one hand around this child. I couldn't just slide down because below, at the bottom of the roof, there was this plastic veranda roof, sort of corrugated plastic. And I thought, if I slide down, I'll fall through that.
Yeah, it won't hold your weight.
And everybody shouted, said, no, don't do that. Wait till the fire brigade come. And I did. I thought, I'll wait, that's the best option.
So you sat tight with him, made sure he didn't do anything else daft, because he's got a bit of form for making bad decisions.
I don't know, because his mother was screaming up saying, don't wriggle. And
I bet she was.
The lad seemed to be completely impervious to her calls. And I was chatting to him saying, don't wriggle. And he wasn't really taking any notice of me either. He was in this little bubble.
Yeah.
And, I just gripped him and hoped that he wouldn't escape. And it was okay then. I felt confident. I'm not scared of heights.
Okay, so the fire service arrive. I'm guessing they put up a big ladder and send up a fireman.
Yeah, they did.
So now there's 3 of you on the roof.
Yeah, they kind of struggled to get the ladder up there because the roof is very steep, and they were kind of struggling to put the ladder on there. I don't know why, but I thought they came quite quickly. I thought they did a very good job.
Yeah.
And they calmed the situation down, because when you do see the fire brigade, that's it. You feel a lot better anyway, and I think everybody in the crowd felt better and reassured, and the parents did. And we got him down. I mean, that was still a bit of a struggle.
What's his name? What's the kid's name?
I don't know what he was called.
You don't? I mean, you're a true superhero. Now, did you manage to talk to his mum?
I did. She was in a state of disbelief and kind of shock.
I bet she was.
She said to me, she gave me a hug and said that she'll write me a letter, and I gave her my address. And I didn't get her name. I was.
You didn't get any name?
The fire brigade were there. They wanted to talk to me, and then there was the father and then the mother, all saying thank you.
You might get a medal for this.
Yeah,
you might. That's the kind of thing that people get medals for. It really is, and it should be too.
I'm not really into that hero stuff.
I think if you never know, you might find yourself at the palace. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe. But I'm just so pleased, because if that had been my daughter and somebody had rescued her, I'd be over the moon, So,
Preston Likely, thank you very much for telling me your story. I just got this vision of you arriving and then seeing what's going on and discarding your coat as if it's a cape.
Yeah, call me up. Likely to the rescue.
Preston Likely to the rescue. Yeah. And then at the end saying, don't thank me, ma'am, it's my job. And then
all the day's work.
Hey, terrific stuff. I hope you do get some kind of recognition.
Okay.
And if anyone from the family would like to give us a call, this is BBC Radio Oxford, the radio station where we salute Superman. What a beautiful day. Pretty good bank holiday weekend all in all, though. I hope you've enjoyed it so far. Well, Jamie Craig is the curator of the Cotswold Wildlife Park near Burford. How are you, Jamie?
I'm fine, thank you. Very busy day.
Are the staff more fascinated with the behaviour of the animals when the weather changes or the people?
I think the animals are easier to predict, and also spring's definitely in the air today. We've had a few people a bit confused about what the rhino were doing, but I'm sure they've seen enough nature programmes to know what that was.
Right, put on a bit of a show, did they?
Yeah, they tend to do that when there's the maximum number of children around, so they need an explanation.
Right, so then the children hurriedly get scooted along to the next exhibit.
Actually, yes, that was that, because I was standing there watching just out of interest, for purely scientific reasons, and you did see them all being sort of moved along quickly before they had to explain too much.
Jamie Craig, good to talk to you.
Thank you.
Curator of the Cotswold Wildlife Park near Burford and the home of Oxfordshire's Randy Rhinos.
Oxfordshire News, Oxfordshire Life.
Graham Mack.
BBC Radio Oxford.
It's a happy 125th birthday to John Logie Baird. He was, of course, the inventor of the television. To tell us more about the man behind the box is grandson, Ian Logie Baird. Good afternoon, Ian.
Good afternoon, Graham.
Tell me about John Logie Baird, then.
Well, he was born in Helensburgh. He grew up there in the house of a Presbyterian minister, and he would get involved in science after a while because what he had was a very bad health problem. He almost died when he was 2 years old, and so he spent a lot of time suffering from colds and flus. And I think this is what led him to start to read all of these science fiction and science books as he grew up, and his imagination was definitely captured by the spirit of invention, so that ended up being what he would do in his later life.
And the television he invented is very different to the one we watch today, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. The system he originally started with was using mechanical technology rather than cathode ray tubes, which was the technology that most of us were familiar with a few years ago. And this technology was able to generate images which didn't have as much clarity as today's pictures. It was about 30 lines. It was vertically scanned. It was an aspect ratio of 3 to 7. So the 3 was across the bottom and the 7 was the height. So it was much taller than it is wide. And this system was actually broadcast from 1929 to 1935.
And you say it was mechanical. It was a huge wheel, wasn't it? Almost like a cine projector kind of system.
Yeah. The wheel had small perforations around and close to the outside of the rim, and these would provide your lines. And then there was a lamp behind that would provide your light. And as the wheel spun, it would give you the scan lines, and it looked a bit like a projector when it was running. And then they came out later on with one which used mirrors, which each one was at a slightly different angle, and that would project onto a ground glass screen. It would back project, and then you would watch it from the other side. And that technology went up to about 240 lines at Alexandra Palace. For the camera only. The receivers were then cathode ray tubes, and then that was pretty much the end of that technology. Directly in TV.
But he was transmitting pictures, so that makes him the father of television. Because there's that other American fellow, was it Philo Farnsworth, who developed a system, but his was all cathode ray from the start. But Logie Baird had done it first, even though it was mechanical, but he was transmitting television pictures, which is important.
No, definitely. He was the first person to get a picture, and he actually would later work with Farnsworth because he adopted electronic techniques in 1932, and he was actually the first person to demonstrate an all-electronic cathode ray tube which could produce color. So that was,
he produced color television as well?
Yeah. During World War II, he continued on, and this work isn't very well known. He was producing 3D colors displays with 600 lines, and they could have been upgraded to 1,000 lines had he lived a bit longer. So that would have been comparable to today's HD picture quality.
Wow. Did you get to meet your grandfather, Ian?
No, he was only living till he was about 57. He died in 1946, and my father was only 11 years old when he passed on. So I got to know my grandmother very well. She lived on into the 1990s, so she would tell us quite a few of the stories. So I knew her very well. What
would she tell you about the man?
Oh, well, he was quite set in his ways. He was very technical, always thinking about experiments, tending to overwork and work into the midnight hours on things. But he was a devoted family man. He took care of my father and my aunts as well. And he was not very musical. And because my grandmother was a concert pianist, he once said to her, "Oh, I recognize that song," and it was the national anthem. And she was always noticing how tone deaf he was. So he had certain very gifted areas in his mind, but music was not one of them.
And what about you as the grandson of John Logie Baird? Have you invented anything or given the world anything?
I've mostly been an historian, so I'm mostly looking back at what other people have done. I haven't invented anything myself.
That must be terrible. You must be asked of the comparison all the time. What have you done?
Well, I write a lot of articles, and I think I've discovered some things in history that may have been previously undiscovered. But no, I've never tried to engineer anything. But my father took on the engineering, and he's got a few patents.
Has he really? He's got some patents?
Yeah, things about surface tension and refining of nickel. And he took on the chemical engineering side, and he's had a very long career in that. And he's been advising Canada's largest nickel refinery on how to streamline their blast furnace. So it's been
and you're the curator of broadcast culture at the National Museum.
Yeah, I'm an associate curator at the Media Museum, and my area of expertise is history of television, and I also cover general media ecology as well.
Is John Logie Baird's original television still intact as an exhibit?
Yes, we have their 1925 apparatus that he built. He had several apparatus, but the one we have is one of the very important ones, which is it contains most of the components that showed that first picture of Stooky Bill, his famous ventriloquist dummy head only, that he would use as the display as his test subject while he was trying to adjust everything, because nobody could sit under the hot lights for more than a few minutes, and he needed somebody to sit there for hours. So that was why he used Stooky Bill, and we actually have the original Stooky Bill as well, the first thing ever seen on TV.
And we can see that at the National Museum?
That's right, yeah. And the telechrome tube as well, which was the first color picture tube that was suggested for practical use.
Good stuff. Do you ever sit watching the TV and go, I wish you hadn't invented this?
There are some shows where, I have to agree with you that they're just awful, but there's an awful lot that's good on television, and fortunately we have the remote, although he didn't invent that. That was invented in the early 50s, but we have the remote, so that's the way out of that one.
Yeah, well, if you just think about all the worldwide events we witnessed live, like the Berlin Wall and the moon landing and everything, it's just an amazing thing. Thank you very much for talking to me, Ian.
Oh, thanks.
That's the grandson of John Logie Baird, the inventor of television. That's Ian Logie Baird on BBC Radio Oxford.
Television, the drug of our nation, breeding ignorance and feeding radiation. TV, its satellite links, our United States of unconsciousness. Apathetic, therapeutic, and extremely addictive. Better living through television.
Does your life really flash before your eyes when you have a near-death experience? Research from America suggests a surge of electrical activity in the brain could be responsible for the vivid experiences described by near-death survivors. Oxford resident Colin Blackmore is a professor of neuroscience and philosophy at the School of Advanced Study at the University of London. He told me what this new research shows.
Superficially, this looks really very exciting. This group of researchers at the University of Michigan have looked at activity in the brain while rats are very close to death. So they've induced a cardiac arrest in 9 rats, deeply anaesthetized rats, so totally unconscious rats. They produced a cardiac arrest and then followed the activity in the brain using brainwave measurement to see what happens. And what they find, surprise, surprise, is the brain does funny things as the animal is dying. And the funny things that the brain does look a lot like what the brain does when a person or a rat is very active and engaged and awake, very alert and awake. And also looks like the activity that happens in the brain during dreaming. So their interpretation is, well, isn't that interesting? Maybe this is what causes those funny near-death experiences that people sometimes report when they've been very close to death and then have recovered.
It's quite a leap to make, though, isn't it? Because we don't know what's going on in a rat's mind.
Well, of course, we don't know what's going on in anyone's mind, really, I mean, physically going on. And this does touch on fundamental questions about the relationship between activity in our brains and what we experience, what we are. If this is the reason why people produce reports of near-death experiences, then there's something funny going on, because this only lasts for a few seconds. This intense period of activity lasts maybe 20, 30, 40 seconds, something like that. At the very, very most, it peaks at around 20 seconds. And yet, people who've had these near-death experiences sometimes give elaborate, prolonged accounts of walking down country roads, into corridors with lights at the end, meeting people, seeing angels, and all that stuff. So, did all of those experiences which produce the memories occur in a very compressed state of time, or are they to a very large extent just invented afterwards?
As a professor of neurosciences, does it bother you that studies like this seem to get more attention from the mainstream media than maybe what you would consider more important research?
Well, a bit. Although, we should never deny interest in science. I mean, it really is important. And if public interest in science is generated by slightly oddball stories like this one, but it persists and people become more interested in how the brain works on an everyday basis, that's good.
Professor Colin Blakemore from the University of London. Chipping Norton is literally the coldest place in the world. Johnny Mullins' winning goal last Saturday literally caused the Kassam Stadium to explode. The gig I went to last night in Didcot was so good I literally died and went to heaven. Now, what's grammatically wrong with those sentences? The answer is nothing. That's because the editors of the Oxford English Dictionary have changed the definition of the word literally, so it can now be used in a similar way to metaphorically or virtually. Fiona McPherson is senior editor of the Oxford English Dictionary. Good morning, Fiona.
Good morning.
So why the change?
Well, it's more of an addition rather than a change. The existing definitions of literally are all still there. It's just that there's this new sense, if you like. So it's just reflecting the fact that this particular word is used in a different way. That's all it is, really.
But yes, it's used a different way. People are getting it wrong.
It's not wrong. You'll never get me to say it's wrong. It's adding an extra layer of meaning. I can understand why people have a bit of a problem with it, but when you actually analyse what's going on, I mean, if you say a book was literally 500 pages long, it may well have 500 pages, but the literally there is not adding anything to that. You can take that out and it still means the book was long. It's just here you're emphasising the fact that the book was that long.
What's the process in changing a meaning or giving a word an alternate meaning?
An extra one. It's really just about collecting the evidence for it. We'll only add a new word or a new sense of a word into the dictionary once we have evidence that people are actually using it in this way.
And you found printed evidence of of people using the word literally when they didn't mean literally,
or when they meant this new sense of literally.
Yes, well, it's difficult to explain now because we've got two meanings for it.
1769 is the first example that we've managed to find so far.
And what was that in?
That was in a book called The History of Emily Montagu. And we've got evidence from Mark Twain. We've got evidence from the Westminster Gazette, which was obviously some periodical. It does go back quite a long way.
Level with me, Fiona. You genuinely do this because the English language is a living, breathing thing. You don't do it to get publicity and sell more dictionaries. Just every now and again you mess with us.
Definitely would never mess with you. I mean, this definition was revised 2 years ago, and if you'll pardon me saying it, it literally slipped under the radar then. I don't think anybody noticed. No, we don't do that.
Does that mean if we use a word incorrectly enough that you will eventually change the meaning of it?
Well, if a word... it all really depends. Words will change their meanings, and I think that's the thing. It's probably not that useful to talk about correct and incorrect. I'll give you a good example. The word terrific, you probably use all the time, meaning great, impressive.
Yeah.
Well, when that first came into the language, it meant terrifying, full of terror.
Did it really?
Yep, it did. And there's a point at which both of those meanings, I mean, that's now a much more rare example, a rare sense of the word, because this newer meaning has obviously come to the fore, and that's what people would always tend to think you meant. But there was a time when they were both in existence. So if you said, that was a terrific film or, I don't know, a terrific book, it could have meant either thing. But because one has now taken over and people perhaps aren't always aware that there was this original meaning, that doesn't seem to be one that particularly bothers people. But if you're bothered by literally, maybe you should be bothered by terrific as well. not that I want to give anyone any idea.
There we go. There is another one that I hear a lot, and I'm told that it's used incorrectly, but now you can clear this up for me. The word enormity.
Right.
Now, I have heard the word enormity actually only applies when you're talking about something that's got a tragedy involved. So you could talk about the enormity of the Hindenburg disaster, but it is used to just describe something that's enormous.
Yeah.
So I've heard you could say the enormity of the Hindenburg disaster, but you couldn't say the enormity of Wembley Stadium unless there was some incident there. Is that true, or is this an urban myth?
Well, I'm just having a look at our definition for it.
Enormity.
But the OED definition hasn't actually been revised yet. So this is the entry which would have been in existence in the first edition, which was first published in 1891, I think. And they're all to do with a gross or monstrous offence or some kind of monstrous wickedness. So that kind of fits in with what you're talking about there.
Yes.
But we've also got an example which says excess in magnitude, hugeness, vastness. And it says recent examples might perhaps be found, but the use is now regarded as incorrect.
Oh, so if someone describes something, because you do, I hate to admit it, but you do hear it on the news, you hear it broadcast sometimes, the word, the enormity of it. You can say the enormity of the situation in Cairo currently, but you can't say the enormity of a desert in Australia, for instance.
Well, what I'm going to now do is have a look in our current English dictionary to see exactly what that says.
I didn't mean to give you work.
That's fine. That's what I'm here for. Yeah. It is today, there is a more neutral sense as a synonym for hugeness, if you like. And what we do say there is some people regard this use as wrong, arguing that enormity in its original sense meant a crime and should therefore continue to be used only of contexts in which a negative moral judgment is implied. But we do go on to say that it is broadly accepted in standard English. So it's the kind of thing where, in standard English, it's absolutely fine to say it. But if you want to be completely precise about the origins of where that word came in, some people may not. You may wish not to use it.
So the next time I hear it used in something official, like a news bulletin, to describe something that's not got the tragedy and the monstrousness to it,
it's okay.
It's okay.
Yes, it is okay. Although some people, as you've just said, may regard it as non-standard, shall we say, rather than
and
wrong.
would those people be described as word snobs?
You could describe them as that. I probably wouldn't want to go that far.
So, are there definitions in the dictionary that have never been changed? The meaning has remained the same through the ages?
Yes, there will be some words like that, but it's unusual to find words like that. I mean, if you think of words like wicked meant evil,
yes.
Still does, of course, mean
yes.
evil, but there's also a strain of meaning now where it means the opposite of that.
Oh, yeah, it means good. Yeah, it was wicked.
Yeah, exactly.
But when a High Court judge describes someone who's committed a horrendous crime as wicked...
I would imagine they're talking about evil.
Yes.
But you can never be sure, mind you.
It is all in the context, isn't it?
It is, and context will always help you with something like that, and that goes back to the literally. I don't think there's any genuine confusion when somebody says that, and it's just adding a little bit of, it's making it a little bit more exciting.
I think
a bit of pep.
While I've got you on, I'll get another thing out that I think there is a lack of nouns.
Right.
For instance, right, we talk about cattle, and a singular is a cow.
It is, yes.
But you can have a cow and a bull elephant. The animal is an elephant, and you have a cow and a bull.
Yes.
But with cows and bulls, there doesn't seem to be a noun for what that animal is that's not gender specific. I think we're missing a noun.
Right. Well, if you find a gap in the language, maybe this is your chance to, come up with something.
Do you mean if we came up with a word for the animal that we call cows and bulls, a word for that animal as a noun, and we got it used regularly, we could get it into the Oxford Dictionary?
Potentially. That is exactly how a word takes shape, really. Somebody, if we're talking about a completely new word, somebody will coin it at some point, and if enough people begin to use it, then that is how a word makes its way into the dictionary, or probably more importantly, enters the language, because the dictionary is only reflecting the fact that it's entered the language. So it's really about getting people to use it. But that's exactly how it would work.
So we need to come up with a word for the animal that we call cows and bulls, the non-gender specific word, and then we need to use it a lot. Like, for instance, on the BBC, that would count, wouldn't it?
It would. It would count as evidence, but it's harder than you think, I think.
It is harder? Well, we need evidence, but we could have recordings of people because we could just get callers to throw it into casual conversations. We could get newsreaders to use it.
We would also need evidence of that going back at least 5 years.
5 years? It takes
a while.
It takes its time, doesn't it?
Because a word, once it goes into the OED, it never comes out again. So therefore, it's about making sure that it's genuinely entered the language.
Because I've got another one while I'm thinking of it. Another noun that's missing.
Go on.
Washing machine.
Right.
We call it a washing machine.
We do.
It is a machine, but it doesn't have a name really. It's a machine, and it washes, so we call it a washing machine. It's because that's what you call things when you don't have a name for them. You know what I mean? We don't call a push bike a cycling machine, or a.
We don't. That's true.
So washing machine doesn't actually have a name, does it?
I think it'll be harder for you to probably justify that one, because I think people are probably quite okay with calling it a washing machine.
Yeah, and actually they're quite okay with cows and bulls.
Yeah,
I think
they are. I think they are. But we're joking. But that is actually how a word, would get first make its way into the language, and then once it had done that, make its way into a dictionary.
Okay, well, fascinating stuff. So where do you sit on the literary fence?
Well, I don't mind it, because
it bugs me, and it bugs the hell out of Phil Gale, who does breakfast on BBC Radio Oxford. I kind of mentioned it that we were going to be talking about this morning.
He got all excited.
I would like to say he literally caught fire, but he was.
But he wouldn't like.
He was not happy at all.
The thing is, from a lexicographer's point of view, so the job that we do, we've got to record these things sort of objectively and dispassionately. And if the word or a sense of a word has come in, regardless of whether we might use it ourselves, we're just recording it. So with this one, because I just see it in the same way as I see the fact that terrific has changed its meaning, or wicked changed its meaning, or added added extra meanings. That's really just how we view it. So it's hard in a way for us to really see what people are getting so excited about.
Fiona McPherson, Senior Editor of the Oxford English Dictionary. Good to talk to you. Thanks for coming on this morning.
My pleasure.
BBC Radio Oxford.
Oxfordshire Oxfordshire News, Oxfordshire Life,
Graham Mack,
BBC Radio Oxford.